Robert Baxter explains on the East versus West podcast that he was surprised to hear Brian Shaw's interview, as he was convinced that after East versus West 19, their relationship had ended on good terms.
I heard about that podcast yesterday. I'm a little surprised. I actually thought that everything was great. I got to call him, because when we left the show, I mean the end of the show, we thanked each other. Everything was great.
Regarding technical and financial issues, Robert admits to technical failures caused by a cyber attack and points out that East versus West covered most of the costs, saving the event financially after the losses in the Strongman section.
We had a cyber attack that shut down the pay-per-view, but that was after the show. So when people woke up in Europe the next morning to watch it, it was down for like 8 hours. So that did, that was a problem. I know he wasn't happy about that, and neither was I. I know Brian lost a lot of money on the show, but he even said in a previous podcast that he lost most of that money on the Strongman, and that arm wrestling saved the show, saved the deal, because we paid for a big chunk of the video production cost, which was very high. And we also paid for a chunk of the venue, which was, fairly high. I don't think there's any way that Strongman could have got the views that we got.
Robert explains the impact of the absence of several European athletes at the event, particularly Vitaly.
Also, the boycott from the East did absolutely affect the matches. We weren't able to get the guys from the East, hardly any of them. But we tried everything to rectify that. I don't know what else I could have done. I got Vitaly to agree to come to Colorado. We had the visa waiting for it. All he had to do was show up for the appointment, and the visa would have been granted through a congressional expedite through Senator Lee. And then he said he had enormous pressure not to sign the deal, not to come at the last minute. And so I don't know what more I could have done. I mean, I really tried hard to get him to Colorado. That would have changed things big time.
Baxter also mentions that Brian got upset when Baxter suggested holding the Baku event and collaborating in Colorado around the same time, which led Baxter to initially cancel Baku.
He was upset that we were going to go to Baku, because Baku was back on. So Baku was off. I mean, there was radio silence from Ingen and from Elmar, and I had to make an announcement of where the next event was going to be. Called Brian the night before, on Friday night before the Chicago show, and said, "Hey, do you want to join forces? Do you want to do this together in Colorado?" He said, "Absolutely. I'll fly out in the morning." And then when he got in the morning, I got a call saying, "Baku's back on. We're all set. We've got the sponsors. We've got the hotel. We've got the venue. It's all covered." And I'm like, "Brian, do you mind if we do both?" "Well, I'm not going to break my word to you. We're going to keep the Baku show, but we're also going to keep the Colorado show because this will be the biggest show of the year. Devin versus Vitaly, it'll definitely be the biggest show of the year. Plus, we've got all of our expenses paid with or almost all the expenses paid with a big sponsor. So I really want to do this." He did not like that idea, and so I backed out. I said, "Okay," because we were then moving the Baku to August, the end of August, so that we could do both. So, so I mean, I don't know if he understands that, but I that's what made me back out of even. I mean, like one of the big reasons is Brian was very upset that I was going to do two shows in the same, around the same time period, which we didn't end up doing. I listened to Brian and like, okay, we're not going to entertain that anymore. We're going to reschedule Baku, which we did for Switzerland. Same guys that were on that card then moved to Switzerland for the most part.
However, Brian Shaw's version differs significantly from Robert Baxter's account. Brian explains that he joined East versus West, intending to help, but the experience turned out to be negative.
They came, I was like, look, I'm gonna step up, I'm gonna help, I'm gonna try to do what I can because I really love this sport. I really love the people that I'm meeting and that type of thing. And that, that collaboration with them was horrible. It was horrible for me.
Brian feels that they were not honest with him about the real situation of East versus West before he got involved.
The conversations weren't truthful, right? That's what's hard.
Yeah.
It's because like I feel like if you're going to come in and like if I had something going on, I'm like coming to you and like, hey, we're going to merge this event. But just so you know up front, like here's exactly what's going on. This is what you're walking into. Would have been nice.
He points out that he saved the situation when East versus West had no venue for the event, but he did not feel any gratitude from the organization.
I stepped up when they didn't have a venue and they were in a bad spot, right? But instead it was not that.
Right.
Right. And that's what is the frustrating side of that to me was like, look, man, I didn't need you guys. Yeah. I could have done it all. I was already doing it all. I didn't need you to come in. I did you the favor.
Shaw details that he had to fight to implement improvements, such as challenge flags and replay screens, as the organizers opposed them.
So I put my foot down about a lot with the arm wrestling. So like the challenge flags, I said I'm not
the repeat videos or whatever too.
The screen on the side. There's a lot of things that were implemented. And I said I'm not accepting not doing this because it's my event.
Yeah.
Brian concludes by saying that the experience was so negative that he needed some time to unwind and recover from it.
I needed a period after that bad experience there to kind of decompress, right? Because it's still getting back to, like, all right, cool. And I didn't want to so quickly get into that negative spot. And I wish that collaboration would have never happened.